for Lunch and Learn, an educational opportunity for families with special needs children. Today's event is sponsored by Jan Davies from Friendswood ISD and me, Edie Fitzgerald from Pearland ISD, along with other surrounding school districts. We're excited to welcome back Allison Schaberg from Consolidated Planning Group. As a parent of children with special needs, she's a passionate advocate for the special needs community, and with more than 25 years of experience as a financial planner, Allison has helped many families develop successful plans to meet individual needs. Today, Allison will be sharing her expertise on transition planning for college.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me back with you guys again today. As she said, Allison Schaberg, Consolidated Planning Group. We are a holistic special needs financial planning firm. We do a lot of webinars, a lot of educational events, and equipping families with the information that they need to be successful along their journey with special needs, and a lot of topics surrounding transition. So today, I am pretty excited to talk to you about college planning for special needs, kind of this transition planning. I really come to you kind of with two hats. Really, I'm coming to you as a parent first. Okay, a parent with two kids with disabilities, one that has crossed over into adulthood, and one that is on the brink of crossing over, but definitely still a minor. And so personally, I live this. I'm in your shoes, and professionally, I eat, sleep, and breathe this too. And one of the reasons that we put a lot of the educational events out that we do is, what I would say to you is, as a parent, even though I do this professionally for a living, as we were going through this process with my own daughter, what I would tell you is it wasn't easy. Okay, there's nothing easy about our lives, right? So it wasn't easy. It was pretty difficult, and that was with having the knowledge and the background that I already have. So anytime that I can put this kind of information in your hands and kind of give you a path forward or something to think about, then I definitely want to do that. So as it relates to college and kind of next steps, as we're thinking about things, I think it's super, super important. One thing is to start early if you can. Okay, so if you're here and you're a little bit late in getting started in this process, then I'm glad you're here and you're not behind. You are where you are. Okay, but the sooner you get started in this process, the better. And setting those realistic expectations are super, super important. Okay, so as we embarked on this journey, in my own family, I think some of the realistic expectations that we were talking about is, where are we? What are our strengths and weaknesses? If you have a child in 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, and you're trying to think, where are we going to go next, and how are we going to get there? And what are some of our options? Okay, so when we're talking about strengths and weaknesses, is being real with whatever your situation is. So despite disabilities, some of our kids are academically gifted, and some of our kids are not. So when it comes to funding, and it comes to thinking about what the future may hold, and how we're going to go after dollars for college, we have to think about what their strengths and weaknesses are and plan accordingly. So if your kid isn't going to be in the top 10, percent of their class, okay, well, welcome to everybody else's world, right? Or if they're not, athletically inclined, but what are they, or what can they do? So if you're thinking, if you're starting this process early, what could they do that would set themselves up for a future of possibility and grants and scholarships that may not be academically based. So when we're keeping an open mind, as it relates to our future and what the options are, think about everything. So I think that for me, some of it is I had to kind of rethink of what is that path. Is it a traditional path? Is that traditional path going to a 4-year public university? Is it a transition program, a trade school, or a community college? it could be one course at a community college. And there's so many different things out there. So reduce course loads, certificate programs. Is there a license program or an apprentice program that your child might be a good fit for? So first things first is college isn't for everybody. Not everybody is a great fit for community college or a four-year university. And maybe some of our kids are not a great fit right now, but they will be in the future. Okay. And when I say that, I say that because a lot of our kids with disabilities may be a little bit delayed in their maturity. Mainly speaking, ADHD diagnoses, autism diagnoses. A lot of us are still hopeful and optimistic of where our kids are going, but they're not quite there yet. So some of these other steps prior to getting to where we're going are completely okay. Another thing that I want to mention to everyone, and this is something that you can contact. There's like a district liaison as it relates to this. But some of our kids may go to work or have a combination of maybe they take a class at the community college and maybe they're going to work. So one thing that I want to mention is the Texas Workforce Commission and the vocational rehab. As many families as we have on here today, some of you are very much aware of vocational rehab or through the Texas Workforce Solutions, the SEAL program, the Summer Earn and Learn. They're taking applications right now, the pre-ETS. There's all kinds of training, support, testing, you name it, as it relates through these programs, which are designed to make our kids work ready and find competitive employment. And basically close any gaps that they currently have, which would be an impediment to employment. So first, they help identify what those things might be. Then they put supports and other training and other things in place that may help your child. So what I would say on this, so whether your child is college bound or community college or whatever it is, this program is a good program alongside whatever else you're doing. They've got programs to get them to work at $10 an hour. They've got relationships with companies that work with individuals with disabilities. So these are all things that you just may want to consider. So and then thinking about like a career path, an ideal work setting. This is where we were talking about so some of these certificate programs or licensing programs are really, really great programs and could provide a good living, a good earning potential, but doesn't require that four-year degree. So these are all things that definitely should be on your radar. And just again, we just say don't compare. Okay, just like whether you've got a senior and you're looking at this right now, you've got a freshman, or you just you're somewhere in between. We're not behind, they're not behind, they are where they are. And what we see is we have this traditional mindset, all parents have hopes and dreams for their kids. And sometimes we push our kids off into the deep end that they're not ready for and they fail. And so this is where we're talking about these steps of getting to where they're going, whether it's a reduced course load, or we try the community college first, or we try some of the different things that we're going to talk about in a moment. I failed to mention at the beginning that today's webinar is being recorded. After later today or tomorrow, you guys will get an email with the recording, and you're also going to get an attachment of these slides. So, and also all of your mics and cameras have been muted, but we welcome questions. They're going to be monitoring the chat box, and we're definitely going to get to as many questions as we can today. Okay, so 6 factors students with learning disabilities need to succeed. Okay, so basically we're just kind of going to run through this list: self-awareness, proactivity, perseverance, goal setting, and presence and use of effective social support systems. And of course, and this is a big one for a lot of our families, is the emotional coping strategies. And I think this is now bigger than ever with COVID and the pandemic and some of the isolation and things that we've seen as a result of this. But part of this proactivity and the goal setting, What is involving your kids in everything as it relates to this process. So I say, and I'm not raining on anybody that has done it differently or anything, this whole process, it is mind numbing. It is stressful. It is mind numbing, and it is no process for an 18-year-old kid, 17-year-old kid to go through or go through alone. So starting early, starting with your child, with kind of what their thoughts are, where they think they might want to go, and consider some of these things, I think is important. Starting early with and I'm sorry in advance to say this, but with some type of a spreadsheet of tracking kind of some of the things that we're going to talk about going forward, tracking your path, because it starts getting convoluted. And if you don't have a good tracking system, of dates and times and when we're doing what, that is also very, very important. But as it relates to the self-awareness, as parents, we do a lot of talking for our kids, especially if they have, a significant health history or what have you. Some of like the example of self-awareness that I did with my daughter through the high school years, and of course we're talking for our verbal kids of, okay, so we're on the way to a doctor's appointment. We're seeing a specialist. We always see specialists, but saying, okay, I'm the doctor and I'm just walking in the room. Tell me who you are, what you have, why you're here. Kind of, if this is a new doctor walking into a room, and what is your situation? So basically, just building that self-advocacy, those skills, and just letting her know that when we go, I'm going to let you talk, and hey, if you fall short, I'm going to fill in the gaps. I'll be right here to help. But these are good little things, because we're not always going to be there every step of the way to talk for them. And we've, as parents, most of us have done a great job of being parents, but a bad job of letting our kids self-advocate for themselves. So anyway, just a little bit of a thought on that. Okay, so when it comes to thinking about what are we going to do if our kids have disabilities, what are some of the things that need to be on our mind? And in the public school, one of the things that has been on your mind is having an IEP or a 504. You have your ARD meetings. You have accommodations in place in the public school. So one of the first things that you definitely need to know is that the accommodations that you have in the public school or private school or wherever you have your accommodations, they don't transfer. They don't transfer to the college level. So this is a new process of getting accommodations set up. And so whether you're going to the, the community college, or you're going to a 4-year university, we really want you to do your homework early on the offices of disability. Okay. So each of these institutions have an office of disability. They have different acronyms. It could be ODS, it could be OD, it could be anything, whatever. But office of disability. So one of the things that we did is, first of all, we narrowed down schools. We narrowed down the schools that had offices of disability and had the degree plan or path that we were thinking about. And so we narrowed the schools down that way, but then we narrowed it down a little bit further to really look at those offices of disability and what they have available, and if they have the accommodations or the capacity to meet our needs. I think we have a few questions. Edie, you want to ask those questions?
I do. We've got a question in the question and answer section that asks, do these steps apply to dyslexia teens?
Yes, for sure. That is actually one of the diagnoses that my one of my kids has as well. So yes, I mean, and dyslexia is something that we see commonly with ADHD. That there's a lot of things that go hand in hand, and there's multiple diagnoses, and we're definitely aware of that. But so if a person is dyslexic and they have print or reading challenges, then they have accommodations that are available for them. It could be, for instance, audio books. Okay, so in the in college, there's a lot of reading. So that's an accommodation that one of my kids has is audio books. There's voice to text recognition software such as Drag and Speak. And I think the newer versions, if you like Microsoft Office that you're paying for and that kind of thing, they do have like a microphone where you can kind of speak your papers and stuff like that. But voice to text recognition software, audiobooks, that's an example of some of them. There's so many different accommodations. One could be, kids that have distractibility issues, that one of the accommodations could be that they can take their test in a small class size or in a testing center without distraction. That could be another one. They could have, if they have physical limitations, they may have like an accommodation for getting to class or something like that. Some people, some of our kids that have working memory issues or processing speed delays, those are some of the things that we see. They may get extra time. We've seen up to 100% more time to take tests or exams. Now they don't. What they don't do, and they can do in the public school, they don't do on the college level, is they don't reduce assignments. They don't reduce assignments by 50% or only do the even or the odd or something like that. You still have to do all the assignments, but you could, for at least the quizzes and exams and things like that, you get extra time to complete your work if those are some of your issues. But the bottom line is what I learned. I learned firsthand as a parent is these offices of disability are not created equally. Some of them are really, really great, and some of them are not there yet. Some of them have low turnover of people in the office. Some of them have high turnover of people in the office. Some of them have very little budgets. Like there was one school, I won't mention, there was one school, and there was the person that was in the office of disability was fantastic. And that was it. It was him. The whole office of disability for the entire university was hinged on the shoulders of one individual, which was scary to me. So that's my point is, so look and think about the accommodations that you already have in the public school, what's working, what's not working. There is a such thing, again, your accommodations in the public school don't move over to the SAT or the ACT or any of these other exams. So there is a process for the SAT and the ACT and requesting accommodations, and you can go on their website and you can type in the search box accommodations for testing, and they're pull up a form basically that needs to be signed off on by a doctor, and then you can submit any of your testing or anything like that you have, and then they will provide accommodations. Some of the accommodations that you might see for an SAT is, again, a small class size or one-on-one testing. It could be, it's possible that you could have somebody that does the bubbling for the person. You could have a reader. I mean, there's a lot of different things. It just depends on what your child's disability is and what the accommodations are that are needed. So do this early. If your child is going to take the SAT or the ACT, you want to get these accommodations in place early. Sometimes it can take 6 to 8 weeks to get these accommodations approved for SAT and ACT. This past year, they've been a lot quicker. Historically, they've been really, really slow. So get that in, get it in quickly. So let's talk a little bit further about the SAT and the ACT and where are we at with that. So it used to be that the SAT and the ACT was the be all end all. You definitely had to have it. And with the pandemic, there has been some changes. So what you will learn as you're going down this college, collegiate highway is that no school is created equally in what their requirements are. That's the reason for this spreadsheet that I was talking about a little bit earlier. Every single school is different. So you want to know what they require. Do they require a SAT? Do they require ACT? Some schools take the highest scores of each section however many times you took it, so they could take the highest scores of each section from multiple tests. Other schools only take one test, and it's the scores of each section of that particular test. So you want to check on that. But so what happened with the pandemic is some schools are saying that the SAT or the ACT is not required. So you can submit it, it can help you, but it's not required because a lot of that testing went away, the testing sites closed, and all of those other things. So just be checking on all of that. The key thing is really just checking early, being prepared, and knowing what each of those schools that you're thinking about applying to may have in mind. And so when it comes to applying to multiple schools, so it's to each his own on his theory. So I know that we're in Texas, and a lot of people are stuck on A&M or UT. And if that's you, like I definitely know families, and their kid is only going to apply to one school and one school only. So that was not the approach that we took with our child, because basically we wanted to apply to the schools that she was willing to go to, because ultimately it doesn't really matter where your undergrad is. Where are the opportunities that she could get the most money or reduced tuition, and who had a good office of disability. And so then we narrowed the search. So we applied for several schools. So it's up to you in that, but I think that it opens your opportunities greater for more money. And at the end of the day, for us, I think it was 10 or 12 schools that we applied to, and then we narrowed it down to 3, and then we narrowed it down to where we were going to get the most money and who had the best office of disability. So anyway, so updated testing 3 to 5 years. So this is something that is important. We're talking about neuropsych testing. We're talking about learning disability testing, whatever testing that you've had done. So there can be some exceptions to this. And this is, again, according to what the school says. So the school might say 2 years, others might say 7 years. So you need to find this out. So this updated testing, one way, sometimes schools will let you around this. So let's say your testing is 5 years old, but let's say your child has had the same pediatrician or the same psychiatrist or psychologist for as long as they've been around, or they've been with them for 5 or 10 years. Sometimes an old testing, if it's a permanent disability and nothing has changed, along with a letter from the PCP or the psychiatrist or the psychologist, basically saying that the accommodations needed are the same, nothing has changed, and please accept this testing. We've definitely seen some schools take this as well. So the other thing that I want to go back to, I mentioned earlier on the vocational rehab. Vocational rehab does a lot of testing. So this is not where you call them up and you say, okay, I need some neuropsych testing or some learning disability testing, and I want you to pay for it. But as a part of getting your child, ready to work or to find competitive employment, they do some of this testing. So typically this testing is not covered by your insurance. Typically this testing is anywhere from, on the low end of $2,500, on the high end of $5,000 to get this done. So you may want to consider partnering with VR for that reason. Edie, do we have a few more questions?
We do. We've got, I'm going to put them in order of your presentation. So I've got a couple of questions about, are there any colleges in Texas that you recommend based upon the effectiveness of their Office of Disabilities?
Yes, and I'm going to put those on the screen in just a few minutes for sure.
Okay, then the next one's related to the work component, and it says, I'm concerned that requesting reasonable accommodations might be a detriment for potential future employers from hiring our kids.
So I think that is a valid concern. And actually through the VR program, these Texas Workforce Solution programs, they actually have training on how to disclose this, or how the right way, how to go about this. And what you have to understand is, while yes, that is true, and it is happening all across the United States, that does happen. But there are also a lot of employers that want to hire people with disabilities and want to work with these programs and want to help. So again, I just can't speak enough about these different programs that are designed to help our kids get to work. They're designed to help close the gap of their ability or what their deficits might be. Or some of them are, some of them are physical, like maybe they're, again, processing speed. So maybe they can't type at all. Some of them are, from, a personal perspective and how they relate to others and how they respond to others. But so you can ask for accommodations in the workplace, but going through that VR process first, going through some of those trainings and helping getting your loved one to center or to be in a good place, I think is a really good start first. Okay, additional questions?
There is another question. It says, are there any personnel in the public schools that can help parents decide which path is best to start on for our child? And is it a good idea to get tested? Or it's really a statement. It's a good idea to get tested the last year of school, 12th grade.
So I would say that, I mean, you can get tested the last year of school of 12th grade, but it's usually 3 to 5 years. So even getting tested and, kind of knowing where where the child is, whether you do it freshman year, I mean, knowing where the child is and, really trying to tailor your accommodations through high school to serve where the child is, there's value in that. There value in getting tested in 12th grade, 11th or 12th grade as it relates to getting your accommodations in place for the college level? Yeah, I think that there is definitely value in that. I think the key is having as much information as you can as soon as you can. So that's going to help you in the journey. So are there personnel in the public schools that can help parents decide which path is best to start? So I would say yes, but what I've seen across districts is there, are one or two people that are either in at least have one whole district. So again, it's like, a couple of people that are working with the masses. So no one is going to be as good as you, the parent, the advocate, the leader. So there are people that kind of that are aware of programs and they can share some of those programs, but your child the absolute best. And these people are not, so I guess what I would say is there is a myth out there that there's the college guidance counselor or something like that, and I thought they were supposed to be helping my kids. And it's true, they do, but this is not them and that's it. Like, well, whatever they say, because again, they're working with so many students and so many families, and this, to the point of my spreadsheet earlier, and the journey, it's a big journey, and it's and it takes the parents and it takes the kids, and there's a lot of people that you can consult with inside and outside of the school. But ultimately, where we got our best information was, I mean, good old Google. I mean, you can Google a lot of things, and you know what your child's weaknesses and and strengths are, and there's a lot of videos and websites about the different programs that are out there, and start looking at some of those. I think that is, I think that's definitely a start. And like I said, that that whole spreadsheet thing is because it's a little overwhelming, because every single school, even though they're state schools in the state of Texas, they all operate absolutely differently. So I think that is the key, but definitely start early, and you can learn in your district what that person's role is and how they can help and what type of help do they, can they provide. But like providing, you know, um, application help, like they're going to do the application for you, or they might have a list of scholarships or a list of programs or some other things to research, and they have a lot of valuable information. But I would say consider them a partner on your journey with your student. Okay, Edie, do we have additional questions?
No, that's it at this time. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so one of the things that I put in here as well is on our first slide, we were talking about transition programs that were available. So sometimes our kids are leaving the public school at 18. Some of them are staying till 21 or 22, depending on where you are. Some of them are moving into a transition program. Again, none of it's wrong. But what we do want to talk to you about is about having that plan. What we really, really don't like to see is where kids are leaving the public school and they're coming home to play video games. There's nothing else on the agenda. There's no additional interaction with other people. There's no transition program. There's no day program. There's nothing. And so we think that that's a bad idea. Okay, so starting early, if you're not going the college route, if you're thinking about a day program or a transition program, there's a lot of awesome ones. This is just a couple. We actually do have spreadsheets of different programs that are out there that you can look into. But if you're thinking of moving into a transition program, which some districts have their own transition program that you can check on, but start researching these early. Look and see what's out there. Is your child a fit for this program? So this is an example of a kid that's not there yet. We're hopeful, we're optimistic, but they're not ready for the community college yet. But they could be. I mean, they're moving in that direction. So these are a lot of good programs that you can check into if you're going to have a little transition before you move into any type of college coursework or something like that. So waiting lists for these places can be long. They've gotten longer over COVID. They've gotten different from the way that they're doing business. So you just want to be checking into some of these programs. Okay, so as for a list, this is not an all-inclusive list. An educational options post high school. Okay, there's pages and pages. I think the other day my assistant said there was like we had like 97 some schools on the list that might work well with people with disabilities, and we predominantly are looking at Texas schools because I don't know about you, but I didn't feel good about sending my child with disabilities out of state. That wasn't something I was overly excited about. I mean, I think we considered it, but it wasn't something that we were overly excited about. And I know some kids definitely want to go out of state. So there are options, but we have focused more on what is around in and around Texas and what you can be looking at. So there are all kinds of these programs. Some of them are simply just a 4-year university that have awesome offices of disability. Some of them are programs specifically for people with disabilities or that have intellectual disabilities, essentially IQ below 70 or maybe 75 or below with multiple disabilities. But so there's everywhere in between. So there are certificate programs on this page. There are 4-year degree programs. There are programs like for instance, I'm going to just call out Texas State Technical College. I guess it's Richmond, Rosenberg. So it's not necessarily a disabled program, but they're known and known for working great with people with disabilities, and they have a lot of engineer brain degree paths. So our kids that are on the spectrum that might be wired that way, that might be a good something good to look at. So anyway, so these are just some of the programs. Lynn University is actually in Florida. They have a traditional path, a 4-year path, and Lynn University is phenomenal at working with people with disabilities. And then, of course, they have this Metamorphosis program as well. So again, these are just some that can be on your list. You can look at those. We do have a YouTube channel where we put our webinars out there so people can listen to them later if they need to. We have a college panel webinar that was previously done where some representatives from some of these programs came and basically gave the who, what, where, when, why, how much on their program kind of quickly, in a 3 to 5 minute set. They kind of talked about their programs. So we're not affiliated with any of these programs or anything like that. These are just some that we're aware of, and certainly if you have others that you think should be on this list, we would love to know that. Edie, we got a couple of questions.
We do. What nearby community colleges has a good Office of Disabilities? I can talk about the Brazoria County, Galveston County group. Alvin Community College has a strong Office of Disabilities. San Jack is also something to look at. Houston Community College also is working well. All of these places have a transitional program. So if you're, whether you're going straight into community college as a 2-year student, or you're looking at something like the Metamorphosis program at Lynn University, they've got those available as well.
Yes. And another, the Lone Star is known as well. So I guess that's more on the Cy-Fair area of town or whatever. But we've had meetings, with the Vast Academy, with HCC, and Anna Calvo. So that's a good program. I think they're all worth looking at. And the thing is what might be wonderful for you, may not work for somebody else. And what I would say is these programs are all very different, and they may be focusing on another thing. Like one program might um, focus on getting them to work in food services or childcare. Another one might focus on more engineer brain type things. So that's why it's really worth it to look at some of these. Do we have an additional question?
Just about some specific things like what is the Metamorphosis program and the University of Houston and what I'll let you do Metamorphosis, although I'm pretty sure I know what it is. Each of these, University of Houston's great. The key is planning early, making appointments with the Office of Disability early, and finding out how they support your child and your child's needs.
Yes, for sure. And I think, I think there's value, and I understand that we've been living in a pandemic and things have changed on how we do, but like we really did a touring program. Like, how does it feel? I'm kind of like, how does this feel? Is this right? Because we know this as parents, we know this, right? So and like some of the ones that I wanted to like when we went there, like in conversation and working with the Office of Disability and things like that, I thought we were just going to really love it. But then when we got to the campus, and the campus was beautiful, but it was on a hill and there was a lot of steps. And for a person that has, physical challenges, balance or equilibrium issues or dizziness or some of these other things, and this, on a hill and all this concrete of steps and things, so it quickly went off the list, right? So I just think that there's value with that, and meeting with, who would your child be working with? Where would they be? What are the supports that they have in place? And again, and other things. So if they are going to a four-year campus, the availability for individual for dorms without a roommate. So it, maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing, in your example. But if your child has significant issues that could be an embarrassment to themselves, or could be difficult for a roommate to deal with, again, that is something from a housing accommodations. There are such things as housing accommodations where typically they would have a roommate, but you could actually have a room without a roommate and not pay for a single room, only pay for your normal room that you would normally pay. So there's just all kinds of things to be thinking about. And then so making your rounds and kind of going through some of that process is definitely going to be helpful. Okay, so what does CLE do? So this is the college living experience, and basically they're in Brenham, and partnering with the community college up there. So basically, these are for our kids that maybe want to go to the community college, but they're not really there yet. So basically, your child lives at the college living experience. They're doing their academics at the community college and career development, but they're also learning independent living skills and social development. So this is kind of alongside, if we were going to try something, but maybe we can't go straight up to living in a dorm or something like that. So this is a really awesome program. That challenges with this program is that it is very expensive. Okay, so I'm not going to suggest that it's not expensive. I think that the people that go through it are very, very happy that they're there. It's and certainly something worth looking into. So of course you would have your expenses of college or going to college, and then the cost of the kids being there as well. Another option, and we like to share about, is Bloom Consulting, the Campus Connection program. So this is really to provide support to your special needs loved one in college with various disabilities. And it's kind of it's just a wraparound program. They do the Berkman method assessment to build on their individualized support team, and they have like a coach that they work with them. They mentor, guidance, navigational support, and so this is like just allows you to be the parent and not the nagger and not the annoyance that we've become with our teenagers. I don't know, maybe it's just at my house, but um, uh, this allows somebody else for them to be accountable to. Okay, so this one is a lot more affordable at $1,000 a month. It's private pay, but this could be covered by VR. So Bloom Bloom Consulting does all kinds of assessments and helping, as far as, getting your child where they need to be, from a vocational perspective and things like that. But they also work with the Texas Workforce Commission and VR. So if it is part of the plan that this is what your child needs, it actually could be covered by vocational rehab. So it's something that, again, that it's worth looking at. They have a specific great connection with Sam Houston State University. So they have a program specifically at Sam Houston State, and also I can also say that the Office of Disability at Sam Houston State is pretty fabulous. So the guy that runs it has been running it for years. He has a disability himself. He gets it. He's really great. Okay, a few more questions.
We do have a few more questions. One of them is are there any post-high school education programs that specialize in low-functioning, low IQ, nonverbal students who aren't and may never be independent, or are those students more realistically better in some kind of part-time work program?
There are programs. There are programs that are specifically tailored to individuals that are IDD. So and some of those programs that we put on the screen previously are definitely worth checking into. UT has multiple programs, so again, it just depends. This is why the research comes into play, because every program is not designed for everyone. And furthermore, some of these programs are pretty fantastic, but they don't take that many kids. So you're going to want to check on those as well. And then and to that regard, if you want to email me, we have a list. We have a PDF list of these, some of the different programs and different options. And so what we call them, we actually have 3 lists. So we have, post-secondary education and transition programs. We have partial residential options and full residential options. So there's basically 3 lists and pretty much everywhere in between. Any additional questions?
Yes, another parent asked about the concern of student safety on campus and how do we help students learn to stay safe and protect themselves?
So that is a very, very valid question, and I would say, part of it is again that advocacy now and talking to them about these things and being smart. For instance, it's not just the physical safety, which is one part. And see again, when you're touring and looking at these campuses, is it a good fit for your child? So that is, that's something to look at. And looking at the campus police and how they partner with the local police and the incidences that have happened on campus are all things that you might consider, when you're considering these options. But just having, deliberate conversations of like for instance, there's, a thing, and probably all of you guys have had this happen, where they've sent you a text message, this panic text message of your accounts have been hacked or something, and call this number or whatever. And so there's all kinds of like phishing and other things, not just, physical attacks and things like that, but just the advocacy and kind of talking through some of these things, and is very, very important. But definitely the campus safety and how it looks and the area that the campus is in. So of course we have U of H, and U of H has a lot of great programs, and it's a great school, and a lot of people love U of H, but U of H in Houston is not in the nicest part of town. So if you have a young lady, maybe that's not a good fit for you. So it's just, I mean, those are all things to definitely consider. So I'm gonna keep moving for right now. So we always aim to end on time, and we want to answer as many questions as we can. But I want to get to funding because that matters. How are we going to pay for this? This is expensive, even if it's 20,000, 25,000 a year on up. Some of these private schools are 50 grand or more a year. So what about funding? So first things first, what you want to know is you need to do the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. Okay, it's available each year, October 1st for the following school year. You want to complete this each year, even if you think you make too much money. The news flash is maybe you do. It doesn't matter because a lot of the scholarships that are out there require that you file a FAFSA. So if you don't file a FAFSA, you're automatically disqualifying yourself from many of the scholarships that are out there. So this is where, as a parent, I went crazy because early on I said, okay, we are not going to qualify for an academic scholarship. We're not going to qualify for a sports scholarship. We're not in band or music, and we don't sing. Like all of these different scholarships that are out there. So early on, I think 8th grade, I was like thinking about what scholarships we weren't going to get. So I'm a realist. Okay, I don't dance around that. So this is what we're not going to get. But I started researching and to understand about what scholarships we could get. Okay, so there are a lot of disability and disease-based scholarships out there. There are also a ton of scholarships out there for kids that do philanthropic work. So I basically put a plan together to figure out what disability and disease-based scholarships we were going to do and focused our attention on doing what we could do to give back to the community and to build, solid volunteer experience, so that way we might position ourselves for scholarships. So that is something that you can definitively do. So as it relates to scholarships, again, research early, know your deadlines, they're all different, but here's what I'm going to tell you. A lot of families think your kid is going in, to their senior year. So it's August, they start school, and you're thinking around Thanksgiving or Christmas break, you're going to start working on scholarships. Well, you're late to the party and you've already missed a bunch of them, basically, is what our experience was. A lot of these scholarship deadlines could be November 1st, it could be December 1st. Some of them are not till spring, but this is where you want to research early. This is where you're going to put your deadlines. When does the application open? When does it close? When do they make their decisions is something that you're going to want on your spreadsheet. They're all different. So there are a ton of scholarships that are outside of the university, but the universities all have pages of scholarships that you can also look through and put on there. So I would say use your time wisely. So this is a big job. It takes a lot of time. It's a big job. Use your time wisely. And so what I mean by that, look at the ones that are going to be meaningful to you, to your child. For instance, some scholarships, they offer you $250 or $500. Look, that pays for 1 or 2 books, okay? But their scholarship application is as long or longer than the scholarship that gives you $25,000. So when it came down, I just learned how much do I stand to get? How much do they, how many scholarships do they give? Is it worth my time, and those types of things, and those little ones, I didn't spend too much time on. So another place as far as funding is 529 college savings programs. So this can be used for college. What you have to be careful of if you have a child with disabilities is if they're getting SSI and Medicaid, a 529 can pay for books and tuition, but it cannot pay for room and board, the 529C. If it pays for room and board, you could stand to lose some of your SSI benefits. So be careful with that. An ABLE account can also pay for school. This is a 529A for ABLE, and it can pay for room and board, and it can pay for books and tuition. And an ABLE account can actually even pay for tutoring, where a 529C. And again, vocational rehab. I feel like I'm like, you think I work for vocational rehab, but vocational rehab may provide support if it's in lines with the goals established within the plan for the individual to find competitive employment. So there are times that they actually may pay for classes or help with some of the supports in place for your child to go to school. So keep that in mind. All right, so what about scholarships? So this is where we are going to be sending out this PDF of our presentation, so you don't have to write all of these down. I want to make that clear because you're going to have links to all of these. So one thing that a lot of people don't know is, so if you adopted a child through the DFPS, the Texas system, so if they were ever in the foster care system or adopted through the Texas system, there are waivers in the state of Texas, and your child can go to school for free. Like I said, free. So a lot of people don't even know that, but that is just something to keep in mind if you fall into that category. I know that not everybody does. Okay. So another place that you can ask for a list of scholarships is from the child life specialist at your specialty clinic. Maybe, Texas Children's, Baylor, wherever you might be going with your child for their disability. There's usually a child life specialist there, and they usually do have a list of scholarships that might be related to the things that you're dealing with. So that's a good place, another good place to look. The one that I am a huge fan of is the Terry Foundation Scholarship. This is a big deal, guys. Okay, the Terry Foundation Scholarship, if you're taking notes, write this down, research this scholarship. Again, the sooner you get volunteering, the better. Okay, this is based in Houston. It's the largest private scholarship provider in the state of Texas. And it was founded to help outstanding high school graduates and transfer students help themselves through access to quality education at 13 Texas public universities. So it's not private schools, it's public, it's Texas State, it's Sam Houston, it's Stephen F. Austin, it's A&M, it's UT, it's Texas Tech, to name a few. Okay, all the ones that you might imagine are Texas State public schools. Okay, so basically this this scholarship it's based on academics, but you don't have to be a 4.0, okay, or anything like that. So it's, to me, it's having a powerful story, and your kids with disabilities that have rose above some of their challenges, and they're here they are, and then they've given back to their community in a big way, and they have all of these volunteer hours. That's what the Terry Foundation is about. It's about volunteering and giving back. And I'm not talking about volunteering at your church. I'm talking about meaningful, consistent volunteering, like, lots of hours. Okay. So, but if your kid gets this scholarship, we lost it here. If your child gets this scholarship, they're fully funded for 4 years of college. And so the cool thing about this particular scholarship is that you can apply for this at 13 times. So it's not one application for all 13 Texas universities. You can actually apply for this fully funded scholarship at all of the 13 schools, and whichever school you get it at is where you go for the first year, and then they allow you to transfer to any of the other 12 schools after your first year. So anyway, that's just one that's totally worth looking up. And again, it's only for Texas schools. It's for Texas residents and Texas schools. So we're not going to spend a lot of time, but basically there are scholarships out there for basically every single disability that you could possibly have or consider. There are scholarships out there for siblings of kids that have these disabilities. And so just, we've put some links out here. You can, research them and see what the requirements are, what the value in it to you is. Again, for me, my radar, of course, I liked the big scholarships. But I really didn't apply for that many. I think maybe 1,500 was the lowest, 2,500, 2,000, 2,500. And of course we applied for big ones, but we had a plan, and we worked our plan. So we had working memory issues, we had processing speed delays, we had physical disabilities, we had marginal on test scores, SAT and ACT. So what I'm saying to you is, you don't have to be perfect to get some of this funding. At the end of the day, my daughter was fully funded from these scholarships, and actually gave like 7 or 8 scholarships back because she was fully funded. And so this was not because she's a genius, and it was not because she plays sports or music or any of the other things. It's because we had a plan, and we worked our plan, and we used her strengths and what she was awesome at, and we we moved on that. So we knew what we weren't, and we knew what we were, and we focused on what we were, and it just really ended well for her. So I just want to encourage you that you can do the same, but it's having a plan and working your plan. Okay, so again, it's just pages and pages here of scholarships and different things that you guys can be thinking of. And again, we'll put this out to you so you guys can look at that. We're coming around the bend for, kind of ending on time. These are things, as we mentioned earlier, Consolidated Planning Group is a holistic special needs financial planning firm. So today we talked about, higher education, we talked about funding, we talked about some different things for our kids with disabilities, some transition talks. But basically all of these things are things that should be on your radar. If you've been with us before, you've kind of been on some of our webinars before, you may have seen this, and if not, we're glad you're here. But there is a long list of things that as families we need to be considering as we're considering transitioning our students, and these are some of them. We actually have webinars on every single one of these topics, and we have past webinars that are on our YouTube channel that you can look at, and we have future webinars that are coming up. So we certainly encourage you to kind of explore some of the ones that might be most important to you in your journey. Edie, that's all I have for today. Here's our contact information. We're certainly happy to chat with you on your unique situation and kind of where you are in the planning process. You can certainly feel free to reach out to us. I see that our YouTube channel, I think it's Consolidated Planning Group is our YouTube channel, but we'll have a link to that in our email that we put out later today with today's recording. All right, so I have just a few minutes left, Edie, and Jan, I'm just going to turn that back over to you for any additional questions that we might have.
So one of the questions we've got is, do you have a certification program list?
A certification program list. So I think the PDF that we have it's kind of all lumped together of the post-secondary high school options, but a lot of them are certifications. So we're happy to send you the PDF. You can just email us and we'll send that to you. You can take a look. We have links to a lot of them in there. And again, these are just things that we've come across along the way. So we've tried to put it together to make it a little easier for families to have it all in one place. We don't work for them. They don't work for us. We don't necessarily endorse or not endorse anybody, but we're happy to share that.
Great. And then another question was, is there a negative impact on testing and applications if there's a length of time, a significant length of time between graduation and starting a post-secondary program?
Well, one thing that I would say that you can get out of, we work with some families that simply their kids don't test well and they simply don't want to take the SAT and ACT. And so, as I said, some of the schools aren't requiring that anymore, but one way to get around that is to go to the community college first. So you go to the community college first, there's the TSI, that test happens. But you could basically get out of taking the SAT and ACT. And so I think people go back to college or community college all the time. People take gap years. People have financial issues where they can't pay. And so I think at this point in time, schools are happy to have students come, and they're going to kind of meet you where you are. So from a learning perspective, I mean, if there's a long gap of school, and learning, that could definitely be an issue.
And the last question that you've got lots of thank yous, lots of I love yous, I want to be you when I grow up statements. But the last question is, Terry Foundation, how far back do volunteer hours go?
So we did 4 years. I mean, and I think and what I would say with the volunteer and the meaningful volunteer thing, I think one of the reasons that my daughter was able to get some of the scholarships that she got is, again, she truly had meaningful volunteer time with various organizations. She, volunteered, with Hope for Three, there's Youth and Philanthropy, there's Dream League, there's so many. But what I would say is the directors of those agencies are the places that she volunteered with a disease specific organization that she has a tie to. but these directors of these agencies wrote amazing recommendations letters. As her mom, I couldn't have written it any better. And so I think those are where you're going to get your most bang for your buck, is having those recommendation letters and having that meaningful, going back. It's not volunteering 2 hours at the second mile thrift store, or whatever it is. It's, consistent volunteering as long as you can. We had volunteer services at a vet through the Texas A&M veterinary science program. So I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there, but they're hip to people saying that they volunteer at their church, and they really don't.
Okay, thank you so much, Allison. What a great information that was. And thank you, Edie, for co-hosting this event with me. I know that we probably have a lot of other questions out there, and I would suggest that you reach out to Allison for any additional questions that you may have, or reach out to your district transition coordinator. Remember, if you want to review any of this information, that Allison will be sharing the documents with us, and you can also log on to the Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having us. You guys are awesome. And for our parents that are here today, thanks for taking the time. It is a journey, learning this stuff a little bit. If you took away 3 nuggets today, or 1 nugget that you can implement as you're planning this process with your child, then you just won. So you're ahead of where you were before. So I'm just certainly glad you are here. And to all our moms out there, have a happy Mother's Day.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. Bye now.
Bye-bye.